is up, Flick fans, and welcome back to my channel, and a very different video from what I'm usually doing. I'm usually talking about movies and television shows and Netflix and superheroes. In a way, we are talking about superheroes today, but not fictional ones. We are talking about the man, the myth, the legend, Stan Lee. As you know, he passed away. As of now, it's been almost a week. I have tried to give this video some time because I didn't want to push it out as soon as it happens because you guys might be looking at me and going, oh, he's taking advantage of the situation. I don't want to come across that way. What I want to do with this video is kind of honor Stan Lee. We've had our time to mourn. We've had our time to pour our hearts, and I am going to send you away later on today with a message from me and my cousin Joe. We host a show called Pop X Cast, and at the end of this last episode, we gave kind of a heartfelt statement about Stan Lee. He did and I did. I'm going to play both of those. Hopefully you guys enjoy that, but right now we are doing the top 10 Stan Lee cameos without honorable mentions because there are so many of them that I love, so many that I had to choose from, so many that I had to leave off this list. And let's get this straight. Anything that is not on this list is an honorable mention because you can't go wrong with the good Stan Lee cameo. It's something that you look forward to during all of the movies, and even recently, he was in Teen Titans Go to the Movies. He was in a DC film. He had a cameo that is very famous, maybe one of the most famous in Mallrats, one of his very first cameos, and he just consistently puts on, and I know it's just a few seconds, a great performance. That's why we love Stan Lee. Not just because of that, though, because he loves his fans. He was passionate about his fans. He always poured his heart out to us, whether it was on his social media or on his website or even on his YouTube channel that he had for a few years. You could just tell that he loved everyone who loved him, and I think that's the best thing about him. But today, we're talking about his roles, whether they're minor or major, and my specific favorites. I'm not talking, okay, these are the best of the best. This is definitively my number 10, definitively my number 1. Not a lot separates my 10 from my 1, and this is very personal. Your list will probably look very different from mine, and I didn't just want to go with the popular vote, because there are so many that people love that I left off of this list, maybe for some more recent ones, or just ones that resonate with me as a specific human being. But your guys' job for this video is to leave your comments. Let me know, what was your favorite Stan Lee cameo, maybe your top 10, and why did he impact you as a person? Listen, I know I put out a video already, a little tribute to him, but we can still talk about how awesome he was because this man deserves all of the videos and all of the comments in the world. But today we're talking about his cameos. Let's start out with number 10. And if you couldn't tell, my list is comprised of all Marvel movies, baby. I loved his Teen Titans Go to the Movies cameo. I loved his Mallrats cameo, but I'm a big MCU guy. I'm a big Marvel guy in general. And why not start out with the one that really just struck me as, oh my gosh, this was all him. The first Avengers movie. All of these heroes really kind of sparked from Stan Lee and what he imagined Marvel Studios to be way back when he was writing these characters. And just that scene of him turning around going, superheroes in New York, the most ironic and hilarious thing they could have possibly done. Just a few seconds, but seeing Stan Lee in the very first Avengers movie, when these heroes came together for the first time, it was honestly something magical. We're going from a little heartfelt to something a bit more raunchy. This is Stan Lee in a strip club. This is Stan Lee doing exactly what you expect him to do. That is something out of his element, making us laugh. He, as the DJ in his cameo in Deadpool, was hilarious, and I loved every second of it. It was so funny. I laughed out loud in the theater. The best possible role for him in a Deadpool movie. Why not? Next up, it's one that won't be on a lot of people's list. We're not going by quality of movie, even though I didn't hate this movie as much as other people, but this is the sequel to Fantastic Four. The original, this is Rise of the Silver Surfer, and the wedding of Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman when he walks in and he's going, hey, hold on, I'm Stan Lee. Why am I on the list? I am Stan freaking Lee, and they won't let him in. I think that's one of the best uses of Stan Lee we've ever had in a cameo. It's very meta, so well done, and I love just hearing him say his own name in a superhero movie back in the early 2000s before we got the really hardcore Stan Lee cameos. Number 7 is very recent, and no, I loved the Infinity War cameo, but his cameo in Ant-Man and the Wasp, his line delivery, I believe he said, well, the 60s were great, but now I'm paying for it. So many subtle things in there that I thought were hilarious. It may have been poorly timed just because what was happening with Stan Lee at the time and all the stupid allegations and whatnot, but watching it in the movie did make me laugh out loud, and I think that's the important thing about a Stan Lee cameo. And at number 6, one of my favorite things that Stan Lee has ever said in a movie, and that is Tony stank. It's such a dumb joke, but you can tell in the faces of Don Cheadle and Robert Downey Jr., I think they were genuinely laughing. I think Robert Downey Jr. actually broke down in that scene just because of how well Stan Lee's comedic timing was and then just how they responded to it. That scene works so well. It kind of lightens the tension just a bit because it was building up a lot up to that point. And I can hear Stan Lee in my head saying, "Are you Tony stank?" One of the best lines he's ever had. I put this at number 5 because I think this one is actually really important. It's not laugh out loud hilarious, but Stan Lee ended up being the guy to cut Thor's hair in Thor Ragnarok, a major plot point for a major character. Now, yes, was it a little wacky when he's standing there clearly not touching anything and they just have the CGI scissor thing? Yes, but it's Stan Lee. It worked for him. You could tell he was having fun with it, and he's the one that cut the hair of the god. How important and significant is that? Stan Lee playing a major part in every movie. This cameo was great. I think Age of Ultron really provided Stan Lee the perfect scenario because it's all Captain America's war buddies, and then you have the one guy that's standing there like, hey, I can take this alcoholic beverage from the gods, and that's exactly what he does. And when they're carrying him away after he's clearly way too drunk, he says his catchphrase, Excelsior, and I believe that's the first time he said it. I may be mistaken there, but I thought that line delivery worked so well. Stan Lee, you got some acting chops on you, kid. This is the one that I remember laughing at the hardest in the theater just because he played such an important role in this scene, and he was in it, I think, longer than anything he's been in other than, say, Mallrats, but that is the scene in The Amazing Spider-Man when they're in the library, Spider-Man and the Lizard are going at it, and Stan Lee just has his headphones on, not paying attention or not hearing anything that's going on behind him. And that entire scene, the way it's playing out in the background, is hilarious. That's classic Spider-Man and classic comedy, both of those things clashing. It felt like a throwback to me, and the fact that Stan Lee was the librarian was brilliant. Number 2 is another one that I don't think is going to be on a lot of people's list, but I just put this in here because of the significance and how everyone in the audience was like, well, not everybody. Just the super nerdy people, but I was one of those guys. I freaked out when I figured out that Stan Lee is potentially going to be the Watcher in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which explains why he has been in all of these different places, why he made cameos in other Marvel movies that weren't in the MCU, because he can see all universes and he's always there. He's always present. Now, I know Marvel Studios, I don't think they have the rights to the Watcher, but they kind of set it up like, oh, Stan Lee is the one. He's been there this whole time and he's always going to be there. I loved what they did. It just kind of connected all of the dots, and even if there are some holes in there, in the back of my head, I'm like, just respecting Stan Lee like that and making him the all-seeing eye of this entire thing, which he is, was a really cool thing to do on screen. I never thought I would be putting Spider-Man 3 at the top of a list. Never in a million years, because I'm not the biggest fan of this film, but I am the biggest fan of this cameo, as Spider-Man 3 provides, I think, the best cameo you can possibly imagine from Stan Lee. Oh my goodness, the line delivery and the line, you saw it at the end of my video, wow. It's so meta, it's so personal just because it is that character. It's Spider-Man, and you think of Stan Lee, the first character you really think of, let's be honest, is Spider-Man, and everything about that and how people keep playing it over and over and over, and I don't think there's going to be a point to where I get annoyed by that just because of the honesty, that was coming from Stan Lee, even seeing it at the end of all of these tribute videos, mine included. I fell right into that trap, but it's just something you have to do because you can see it in Stan Lee's face when he's talking. Enough said. I mean, that's it. He is saying everything completely honest and as true as he possibly can.
You know, I guess one person can make a difference. Enough said.
And I think it validates the reason why everyone loves him. Stan Lee, you are absolutely the man. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I need to know, what are your favorite cameos from Stan Lee? Did you enjoy this type of video? It's a little bit different. It's not a review or a reaction like I said, but I want to switch things up every now and then and just do something that is personal. And this is personal to me, and you'll find out here in just a second why. Stan Lee means a lot in my life. I know he means a lot in everyone else's life. Thank you guys for watching this video. Be sure to hit that thumbs up if you want more stuff like this, but once again, this is not about me. It's not even about you guys, as it usually is. This is about honoring the memory of Stan Lee, and that is what we need to continue to do. So I'm checking out. I want to go ahead and transition on over to my final thoughts, but be sure to stick around because this weekend, a lot of really cool content coming at you. You guys are the absolute best. And welcome to PopX Cast.
Austin, how has Stan Lee impacted your life?
What hasn't he impacted? No. Stan Lee is the reason. I have many reasons why I love the comic book industry and superheroes and superhero movies. You know my passion. That's where it really lies, is going to a theater and watching a gigantic superhero action film, regardless of whether I love the movie or not. It's amazing that we get to see these characters that we have grown up with come to life on the big screen, but none of that is possible. My love for film stemmed from my love from comic books, which stemmed from Stan Lee. You know, everything that has influenced what I do right now that I love, not necessarily my career, but what I hope to be my career one day, comes from Stan Lee. I have never sat back and thought about how one man could impact so many aspects of my life, and it's a man that I never saw losing. You know, as old as he was, I never fathomed what it would feel like to lose Stan Lee, because I think we all knew it was coming, especially when Joan passed away.
Yeah,
Being together that long, you lose somebody that is that important to you. You know it's coming quicker than maybe it would have otherwise. But I just didn't think it could happen. The man seemed immortal to me. He really did. And I think it's the fact that he's influenced so many different aspects of all of our lives and PopX and everyone watching. But once it happened, it really gave us a chance to kind of sit back and think about how much this man has done for us, not just for the industry, not just for movies, not just for comic books, but for us as individuals.
Wow.
And just seeing all of his messages on Twitter and social media and how much he loved his fan, and especially that video of him talking about how much he loves his fans, is maybe something that could influence me more than any comic book or any superhero or any character ever could, seeing his passion. And I think that's what really has influenced me throughout the years, and I didn't even know it. But this gave me the opportunity to look back at that. And for those reasons, I think Stan Lee is maybe one of the most impactful people on my life personally.
Gee whiz, dude. That was freaking beautiful.
Thank you, man.
I didn't want to interrupt a bit of that. I was just I was just sitting here soaking it in, and I grew up a very sick kid. It's probably it's if you've been around me long enough, you know I had a little bit of a difficult childhood growing up, not in terms of family, but in terms of health. And I remember it was probably about 7 years old, and my father came into the room one day and he handed me this comic book. And he's like, he would always go down to the grocery store on Friday, and he would bring back, and we had the old spindle near the magazine rack, and they would have the comics on the spindle, and he picked one out just at random. At the time, I was watching Lou Ferrigno, the Incredible Hulk, on television, and that's one of the reasons why Stan Lee went to Los Angeles. There's Lou right there. When Stan Lee moved out to L.A., he opened up an opportunity for the comics to make its way to film, and the Spider-Man one was another series that had a short run, but the Incredible Hulk with Lou Ferrigno and Bill Bixby by far was a huge mega hit on television back in the day. And it was just, he handed it to him, Incredible Hulk 334, The Return of the Gray-Skinned Goliath was the name of it. And I'm reading this, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, who's Stan Lee? Who's Peter David? Who are these people? You know, and I'm reading the story about this nerdy guy, and when he gets really stressed out and he just can't take it, his body metamorphosizes into this creature that nobody around him understands, and he has a hard time trying to communicate with everybody. Kind of felt like me a little bit. And in daggone it, Joe. And that, I'm sorry. So reading these comic book pages created something within me, and I became an artist because of Stan Lee. I taught myself how to draw. I remember I was at a Kmart store as a 9-year-old kid, and at the magazine rack there was this How to Draw the Marvel Way with Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. At the time, it was a $20 book in the 80s. That's a lot of money for a book. And I remember saving my money up and going to the, I would go to like flea markets and sell stuff and try to get enough money because I was a kid. I had enough money to buy this book, and I bought this book, and I taught myself how to draw using the very exact same methods that Jack Kirby uses, that John Buscema and Steve Ditko uses. And I became a comic book artist because of that. And from that, Stan Lee created this franchise, and I am a product of, there it is, How to Draw. That's exactly the book I have. Look at that, John Buscema. Yep. Oh, my God. Wow. That is crazy. I still have a copy of that book. Mind you, it's very tattered and worn, but I hold it very dear to my heart because this book taught me how to draw. Stan Lee created something in me that gave me identity and purpose. I don't talk much on PopX about my faith. I don't talk much about that. But again, that's part of my identity and purpose is being able to draw and connect with heroes in a way that brings out, it allows the underdog to be the hero. And I love a story where the underdog becomes the triumphant warrior. Yeah. And for the sick kid that's growing up in the hospital bed or, hooked up to IV infusions or whatever, I wanted to break free of that prison. And through the pages of The Incredible Hulk and The Amazing Spider-Man and X-Men, I broke free of that prison. And so for me, that's how I connected. Very early on, at a very early age, Stan Lee impacted my life and created a trend and a mark on my life that will literally define who I am today as a person and as a creative. I create comics. I draw comics. I read comics. I do a comic book show. I am a certified pop culture comic book historian. And the list goes on and on.